The rain came in sheets, relentless and cold, turning the forest path into a river of mud. Lena pulled her hood tighter over her face, but the wind lashed at her, driving the water beneath her collar and down her back. Her boots sank into the earth with every step, the weight of the storm pressing against her like an unseen hand. She shouldn't have come. The thought had gnawed at her since she crossed the boundary of Black Hollow. The old gnarled oak with the iron nails driven into its trunk, the one the villagers called the Sentinel. It marked the edge of the safe world, the place where the stories began, and where people disappeared. Lena adjusted the straps of her pack, her fingers numb. The letter in her pocket was damp, the ink bleeding at the edges, but she didn't need to read it again. She had memorized Samuel's last words before he vanished. Lena, if I don't come back, don't follow me. The forest isn't right. It's watching. She had laughed when he first said it. Samuel had always been the superstitious one, the one who listened too closely to the old tales. But when 3 days passed without word, when the search parties came back empty-handed and whispering about shadows that moved on their own, she stopped laughing. Now, 5 days later, she was the only one still looking. The trees closed in around her, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers against the storm-grey sky. The deeper she went, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no rustling of animals in the underbrush, just the drumming of rain and the occasional groan of ancient wood. She checked her compass, but the needle spun lazily before settling in. The wrong direction. North was east, east was south. The forest was playing tricks. Damn it, she muttered, shoving the compass back into her pocket. She knew the stories. Black Hollow wasn't just a forest. It was a living thing, a place that shifted and changed to suit its own whims. Hunters spoke of paths that vanished behind them, of trees that weren't there the day before. Some said the forest fed on the lost, drawing them deeper until they became part of the earth itself. Lena clenched her jaw. She didn't believe in fairy tales, but she believed in Samuel. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow darting between the trees. Too fast to be human, too wrong to be an animal. Her hand went to the knife at her belt. "Samuel?" she called, her voice swallowed by the rain. No answer. The shadow was gone. Night fell too quickly, the forest plunging into a darkness so thick it felt like drowning. Lena managed to start a fire, the feeble flame fighting against the damp wood. She huddled close, her clothes still soaked, her breath fogging in the cold air. She should have turned back at dusk, should have listened to the warnings, but Samuel was out here somewhere, and if there was even a chance he was alive, she wouldn't leave him. The fire crackled, casting long, flickering shadows against the trees. For a moment, she thought she saw a face in the bark, a hollow-eyed, gaunt thing, watching her. She blinked, and it was gone. Her nerves were frayed. That was all. Then she heard it, a whisper, not the wind, not the rain, a voice so soft it might have been her imagination. "Lena." She shot to her feet, knife in hand. "Who's there?" Silence. The fire sputtered, the light dimming. The shadows stretched longer, creeping toward her like living things. And then, from the darkness beyond the trees, a child's laughter. High, mocking, impossible. Lena's blood turned to ice. She wasn't alone. The laughter didn't stop. It wove between the trees, light and cruel, bouncing off the wet bark like a taunt. Lena's grip on her knife tightened, her knuckles white. She knew that sound, knew it from the stories. The Hollow Children. Every village bordering Black Hollow had tales of them. Lost souls who never grew up, who played in the dark and led travelers astray. Some said they were the spirits of children who had vanished in the woods. Others claimed they were something older, something that had never been human at all. Lena forced herself to breathe. It's just the wind, just your mind playing tricks. Then, a twig snapped behind her. She spun, blade raised. Nothing. The fire guttered, its light shrinking, as if the darkness were swallowing it whole. The laughter came again, closer now, from multiple directions. "You're lost," a voice whispered. "Too high, too sweet." Lena's pulse hammered in her throat. "Show yourself!" A rustle in the underbrush. Then, a child stepped into the flickering firelight. Small, pale, dressed in tattered clothes that might have been white once, now stained with mud and something darker. Its hair was matted, its face smudged with dirt. But its eyes, black, entirely black. Lena's breath caught. The child smiled, its teeth too sharp. "We've been waiting for you." More of them emerged from the trees. 5, 6, a dozen. They moved like shadows given form, their bare feet silent on the damp earth. Some were small, barely more than toddlers. Others looked closer to 10 or 12, their limbs too thin, their faces hollow. All of them had those same black eyes. Lena took a step back, her knife still raised. "Stay away!" The first child tilted its head. "Why? We just want to play." Its voice was wrong. Not just the tone, the way it spoke, like its mouth wasn't used to forming words. One of the others giggled, the sound like breaking glass. "She's scared." "We don't bite," another chimed in, grinning wider. "Not unless you run." Lena's mind raced. She had heard stories of people encountering the hollow children. Most never came back. Those who did were never right again, muttering about games they couldn't win, about rules that kept changing. She had one advantage. She knew the tales, and the tales said the hollow children loved games. Swallowing hard, she lowered her knife, slightly. "What do you want to play?" The children exchanged glances. Then the first one, the leader, if they had one, smiled. Hide and seek. The rules were simple. Lena would hide. The children would seek. If they found her, she lost. If she made it to the old stone well before dawn, she won. "And if I win?" Lena asked, though she already knew the answer. The child's grin stretched. "Then we help you find your brother." Her chest tightened. They knew about Samuel. Before she could ask how, the children began counting in unison, their voices rising in a sing-song chant. 1, 2, 3. Lena didn't wait. She ran. The forest was different at night. The trees seemed to lean in, their branches clawing at her clothes as she sprinted through the undergrowth. The moon was a sliver behind the clouds, offering barely enough light to see. She didn't dare stop, didn't dare look back. She could still hear them counting. 7, 8, 9. Her boots slipped in the mud, but she caught herself, veering left toward a denser thicket. If she could just find somewhere to hide, just for a little while. A giggle echoed from the trees to her right. Too close. She ducked behind a fallen log, pressing herself into the damp earth. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her heart pounding, so loud she was sure they could hear it. The counting stopped. Silence. Then, "Ready or not?" A chorus of laughter erupted through the woods. "Here we come!" Lena didn't move. She barely breathed. The children's footsteps were light, almost soundless, but she could hear them moving through the brush. Hear their whispers. Where is she? Maybe she's already at the well. No, she's hiding. She's scared! A twig snapped nearby. Lena squeezed her eyes shut. Then, a small, cold hand grabbed her ankle. She barely stifled a scream as she kicked back, scrambling away. The child, a little girl with tangled hair and a dress that might have been white a century ago, giggled. "Found you." Lena bolted. She didn't know where she was going. The forest was a maze, the paths shifting, the landmarks unfamiliar. But she ran anyway, branches whipping at her arms, her lungs burning. Behind her, the children gave chase, their laughter rising like a swarm of insects. "You can't hide forever. We'll find you." We always do. Lena's foot caught on a root. She hit the ground hard, her knife flying from her grip. She barely had time to roll onto her back before the children surrounded her, their black eyes gleaming in the dark. The leader crouched beside her, tilting its head. You lose. Lena's fingers dug into the mud. What happens now? The child smiled. The hollow children did not let her rest. They dragged her to her feet, their small hands gripping her arms with unnatural strength. Their fingers were cold, too cold, like the touch of river stones in winter. Lena's breath came in sharp gasps, her body still aching from the fall. Again, the leader said, its black eyes unblinking. Hide and seek. But this time, it leaned in, its breath smelling of damp earth and rotting leaves. We give you a head start. Lena wiped mud from her face. Why? The child's grin widened. Because it's more fun when you run. The others giggled, their voices overlapping like wind through dead branches. One of them, a boy with a missing front tooth, pressed something into her hand, her knife. She stared, at it, then at him. You'll need it, he whispered. The forest doesn't like cheaters. Before she could ask what he meant, the children scattered, vanishing into the trees like smoke. Only the leader remained, watching her with that hollow, endless gaze. Count to 50, it said. Then run. And then it too was gone. Lena didn't trust them. She knew the stories, knew that the hollow children lied, that their games were traps wrapped in pretty words. But she also knew she had no choice. So she counted. 1, 2, 3. Her fingers tightened around the knife. The forest seemed to hold its breath around her. The usual sounds of night, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl. Gone. Only the whisper of the wind remained, carrying with it the faintest echo of laughter. 23. 24. She scanned the trees, looking for any sign of movement. The moon had slipped behind the clouds, plunging the woods into near total darkness. If she was going to run, she needed a plan. The well, that was the goal. But where was it? Samuel had mentioned an old stone well in his research, something about it being a marker for the heart of the forest. If she could find it, if she could win 48, 49, 50, she ran. This time, she was smarter. She didn't just sprint blindly. She moved carefully, keeping low, using the undergrowth for cover. The knife stayed in her hand, its weight a small comfort. The forest seemed to shift around her, paths appearing and disappearing like tricks of the light. She swore she passed the same gnarled oak twice, its roots twisting in a way that looked eerily like fingers. A whisper from the left. Lena froze. She's getting closer. The voice was faint, barely more than a breath. She turned slowly, scanning. The shadows. Nothing. Then, a flicker of movement. A pale face peering from behind a tree. She didn't wait. She bolted in the opposite direction, her boots pounding against the damp earth. Behind her, the laughter started again, rising in volume as the children gave chase. Warmer. Warmer. She veered left, ducking under a low-hanging branch. The ground sloped downward, the trees thinning slightly. Ahead, a clearing. And in the center of it, the well, old stone, half covered in ivy, its mouth gaping like a hungry throat. Lena's heart leapt. She was close, so close. Then a small figure stepped into her path. The leader. Going somewhere? It asked, tilting its head. Lena didn't stop. She barreled forward, knocking the child aside. It let out a startled cry, the first sound of real surprise she'd heard from any of them, and she didn't look back. The well was right there, 10 paces, 5. She reached out, her fingers brushing the cold stone, and something grabbed her from behind. Small hands, too many of them. The children swarmed her, pulling her back, their laughter shrill and triumphant. Too slow. You lose again. Now you have to pay, Lena thrashed, but there were too many of them. Their grip was iron, their voices overlapping, in a cacophony of glee. The leader stepped forward, its black eyes gleaming. "Do you give up?" it asked. Lena gritted her teeth. "No," the child sighed, as if disappointed. "Then we play again." It reached out, pressing a single, icy finger to her forehead, and everything went black. When Lena woke, she was no longer in the forest. She was in a house. A small, crumbling cottage, its walls lined with yellowed wallpaper, its floorboards warped with age. A single candle flickered on a table, casting long, twisting shadows, and sitting across from her, Samuel. Her brother looked gaunt, his face pale, his eyes sunken. But it was him. Really him. "Samuel," she whispered, her voice cracking. He didn't answer, just stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then the door creaked open. The hollow children filed in, their faces solemn now. The leader stepped forward, holding out a hand. "One last game," it said. "If you win, you both go free." Lena's throat tightened. "And if I lose?" The child smiled. The candlelight flickered, casting long, trembling shadows across the rotting walls of the cottage. Lena's fingers dug into the arms of her chair, the wood splintering beneath her nails. Samuel sat across from her, motionless. His eyes, once so full of warmth, were hollow. "Empty." "Samuel," she whispered again, leaning forward. He didn't react. The hollow children circled them like vultures, their bare feet whispering against the floorboards. The leader, the one who had touched her forehead, stood between them, its grin stretching too wide. "The rules are simple," it said. "Ask him 3 questions. If he answers truthfully, you win. If he lies," it shrugged as if the consequence were obvious, "you lose." Lena's pulse hammered in her throat. "How do I know you won't make him lie?" The child's black eyes gleamed. "You don't." A chorus of giggles rose from the others. Lena clenched her fists. This was another trick, another game stacked against her. But Samuel was right here, so close she could reach out and touch him, if she dared. She took a slow breath. "First question," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Do you know who I am?" Samuel's lips parted. A dry, rasping sound escaped, like wind through dead leaves. Lena, her name, spoken in his voice, but wrong. Too flat, too lifeless. The children tittered. "Truth," the leader declared. Lena swallowed hard. "One down. Second question." She leaned closer, searching his face for any flicker of recognition. "Why did you come to this forest?" Silence. Then, "I heard them calling." A chill slithered down her spine. "Who?" The leader clucked its tongue. "That's 3 questions. You only get 2 more." Lena bit back a curse. "Fine. Last question," she said, her voice low. "Do you want to leave this place?" Samuel's head tilted slightly. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Something human. Something afraid. "Yes." The cottage seemed to exhale. The leader sighed dramatically. "Truth again. How boring." Lena shot to her feet. "Then we go free. You promised." The children exchanged glances. Then, as one, they began to laugh. High, mocking, cruel. The leader wiped imaginary tears from its eyes. "Oh, we did. But you didn't ask the right questions." It stepped aside, revealing the cottage's front door. It was open. Beyond it, nothing. Just an endless, yawning black. "You can leave," the child said sweetly. "But he can't." Lena's stomach dropped. She turned to Samuel, but he was already fading, his form dissolving like smoke. "No!" She lunged for him, but her hands passed through empty air. The children's laughter swelled, filling the cottage, the walls themselves seeming to shake with it. The candle flared, then snuffed out. Darkness. Then, a hand closed around her wrist. "Run!" Samuel's voice hissed in her ear. And then she was being dragged forward, toward the open door, toward the void. She had 1 second to decide. Trust him or stay. She ran. The moment Lena crossed the threshold, the world twisted, the cottage vanished, the laughter cut off mid-breath. She was back in the forest, stumbling through the undergrowth, Samuel's hand still gripping hers. He was solid now. Real. "Samuel, not here!" he gasped, pulling her forward. "They're still watching." She didn't argue. She ran with him, branches whipping at her arms, the ground uneven beneath her feet. The trees seemed to lean away as they passed, as if reluctant to let them go. After what felt like hours, Samuel slowed, doubling over to catch his breath. His face was ashen, his clothes torn and streaked with dirt. Lena grabbed his shoulders. "What the hell happened to you?" He looked up, his eyes haunted. "I found the well," he said, and I looked inside. Samuel's story came in fragments. He had come to Black Hollow searching for answers, for proof of the legends their grandmother had whispered about. The well was supposed to be a marker, a waypoint to something older, something hungry. "But it wasn't just a well," he muttered, rubbing his arms as if cold. "It's a door, and the children, they're the keys." Lena's skin prickled. "What does that mean?" "It means they're not just lost souls." Samuel's voice dropped. "They're guardians. They keep people away from the well, or feed them to it." A twig snapped nearby. Both of them froze. The forest had gone eerily silent again. No wind, no animals, just the creeping sense of being watched. Samuel's hand found hers. "We need to go. Now." They ran, not toward the village. Samuel insisted. The path back was already gone, but deeper into the woods, toward a place he called the Witch's Glade. "It's the only safe spot," he panted. "The children can't go there." Lena didn't ask how he knew. The look in his eyes told her enough. The trees thinned as they reached a small clearing, its center dominated by a massive gnarled oak. Carved into its bark were symbols, old, worn, but unmistakably deliberate. Samuel sagged against the tree, his breath ragged. "We can rest here, for a little while." Lena studied the carvings. They looked like warnings. "What happens when the sun rises?" she asked quietly. Samuel closed his eyes. "That's when the real hunt begins." The oak tree's roots twisted like serpents into the earth, its trunk wide enough that 3 grown men couldn't have encircled it with their arms. The carvings in its bark pulsed faintly in the moonlight, not with light, but with something darker. A deep, unnatural shadow that seemed to swallow the torchlight when Lena held it too close. Samuel slumped against the roots, his breathing ragged. His fingers trembled as he pressed them to the carvings. "She'll know we're here now," he murmured. Lena crouched beside him, her knife still gripped tight. "Who?" Samuel's eyes flicked up, not to her, but to the branches above them. "The one who made this place." A gust of wind hissed through the leaves, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something older, something like burnt hair and wet stone. The shadows between the trees seemed to shift, elongating, stretching toward them like curious hands. Lena swallowed hard. "We can't stay here." Samuel's laugh was hollow. "We can't leave either. Not until dawn." She opened her mouth to argue, then froze. A sound, not the wind, not the trees. Singing. A woman's voice, low and rasping, drifting through the woods like a funeral dirge. Samuel went rigid. "She's coming." The singing grew louder, closer. Lena pressed her back against the oak, her pulse hammering in her throat. The knife in her hand felt pitifully small. Then, movement. A figure emerged from the trees. Tall, gaunt, dressed in tattered robes that might have been white centuries ago, now stained the color of old blood. Her hair hung in matted ropes. Her skin stretched too tight over sharp bones. But her eyes were worse than the hollow children's, because they were human and they were utterly, terribly sane. The woman stopped singing. Her lips peeled back in a smile, revealing teeth filed to points. "Visitors," she croaked. "How delightful." Samuel didn't move, didn't breathe. Lena forced herself to stand. "We mean no harm." The witch's head tilted. "Liar!" She took a step forward. The earth itself seemed to recoil beneath her feet, the grass withering to black where she stepped. "You seek the well," she said. "You seek what sleeps beneath it." Samuel made a strangled noise. The witch's gaze snapped to him. "Ah, you've already looked, haven't you? Peeked into the dark and saw it peeking back." Her grin widened. "No, wonder the little ones are so fond of you." Lena's grip on the knife tightened. "What do you want?" The witch laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Want? Oh, child, I haven't wanted in a very long time." She gestured to the oak. "This is my prison, my punishment, to guard the way, to keep the sleeping thing from waking." Her eyes locked on Lena. "But you could change that." The offer hung in the air like a noose. The witch wanted freedom, and in exchange, a life, she whispered, her fingers brushing Lena's cheek. "Just one, yours or his." Samuel lunged forward, knocking her hand away. "No." The witch's smile didn't waver. "You don't decide, she does." Lena's mouth went dry. She had come here to save Samuel. But this wasn't salvation. This was a trade. The witch leaned in, her breath reeking of rot and old bones. "Choose." The forest held its breath. Lena looked at Samuel, at her brother, her only family, the boy who had carried her on his back when she twisted her ankle as a child, who had stayed up all night reading her stories when she was afraid of the dark. Then she looked at the witch, and she smiled. "I choose you." The knife plunged into the witch's chest. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the witch screamed, a sound so loud the trees shook with it. The carvings on the oak flared, black, the roots twisting like living things. The earth itself trembled, cracks splitting the ground as something far below stirred in its sleep. Samuel yanked Lena back as the witch collapsed, her form unraveling like smoke, her voice fading to a whisper. "Foolish girl. You've only made it hungrier." Then she was gone. And the forest began to change. The trees bled. Black sap oozed from their bark, pooling in the cracks in the earth. The air thickened with the stench of rotting meat, and in the distance, laughter. The hollow children were coming. Samuel grabbed Lena's arm. "We have to go. Now." She didn't argue. They ran as the world unraveled behind them, the path twisting, the shadows reaching. Somewhere deep below, something stirred, and it was awake. The ground trembled beneath their feet as they ran. Not the steady rhythmic quake of an earthquake, but something worse, something alive, like the forest itself was breathing, exhaling decay through the soil. The trees groaned, their branches snapping like brittle bones as black sap oozed from their trunks. Lena didn't look back. Samuel's grip on her wrist was iron tight, his breaths coming in sharp, panicked gasps. "The well!" he choked out. "It's waking up." She didn't ask what it was. The way his voice broke told her enough. Behind them, the laughter of the hollow children rose, no longer playful. Now it was shrill, hungry. "Run! Run, little mice!" A voice sang from the shadows. "The dark is coming!" Another giggled. Lena's lungs burned. Her legs screamed, but she forced herself forward, following Samuel as he wove through the trees, his movements frantic. Then, a hand burst from the earth in front of them, pale, skeletal, clutching at the air like a drowning man. Samuel recoiled, nearly dragging Lena down with him. More hands followed, breaking through the soil, fingers twitching, grasping. The forest wasn't just bleeding, it was digging itself free. They changed direction, skirting, the grasping hands, their boots slipping in the slick black mud. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe, like the forest was filling with something heavier than oxygen. Samuel suddenly yanked Lena to the side, just as a gnarled root lashed out from the ground like a whip, missing her ankle by inches. "The trees," she gasped. "Yeah," Samuel panted. "They're pissed." Ahead, the undergrowth thinned, revealing a slope leading downward, into a ravine Lena didn't remember seeing on any map. At the bottom, half buried in the earth, was the well. But it wasn't just stone anymore. The mouth of the well had grown, its edges stretching like a grotesque flower in bloom. The ivy that once covered it now writhed like serpents, twisting in the air as if sensing their approach. And from deep inside, a sound, a heartbeat. Lena's stomach lurched. "We're not going toward that, are we?" Samuel's face was grim. "Only way out is through." A shriek tore through the trees behind them. The hollow children had found them. The children didn't run this time. They crawled, on all fours, their limbs, bending too far, their black eyes fixed on Lena and Samuel as they scuttled forward like insects, their mouths stretched too wide, their teeth gleaming in the dim light. "You shouldn't have killed her," the leader hissed. "Now there's no one to keep it sleeping." Samuel grabbed Lena's hand. "Jump!" She didn't have time to ask where. He yanked her forward, and they leapt into the ravine. The fall should have killed them. It didn't. They hit the slope hard, tumbling, rolling, the world spinning in a blur of blackened earth and grasping roots. Lena's shoulder slammed into a rock, pain exploding down her arm, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. They skidded to a halt at the base of the ravine, just feet from the well. The heartbeat was louder now. Thump, thump, thump. Samuel staggered to his feet, blood streaking his temple. "We have to go in." Lena stared at him. "Are you insane?" He grabbed her shoulders. The witch wasn't guarding the well to keep us out. She was guarding it to keep it in, and now it's waking up. The only way to stop it is from the inside. Above them. The hollow children reached the edge of the ravine. They didn't follow, just watched, waiting. Lena's hands shook. Samuel's grip tightened. "Trust me," she exhaled, then nodded. The well wasn't dark inside. It pulsed. A deep, rotten glow emanated from below, like the last embers of a dying fire. The walls weren't stone anymore. They were flesh, slick and veined, contracting slightly with each heartbeat. Lena gagged at the smell. Samuel didn't hesitate. He climbed onto the edge, then held out a hand. Lena took it, and together, they jumped into the throat of the beast. The fall lasted longer than it should have. Lena's stomach lurched as the walls of the well stretched around them, the fleshy interior pulsing like a living throat. The air grew thick, hot and wet. Each breath tasted of copper and spoiled meat. She couldn't see Samuel beside her, but she could feel his grip on her wrist, his fingers digging into her skin like an anchor. Then, impact, but not the bone-shattering crash she expected. They landed in something soft, wet. The darkness was absolute. The silence was worse than the screaming. Lena crouched in the dirt, her knife still slick with black fluid, her ears straining for any sound. The whisper of leaves, the scuttle of the hollow children, the wet, hungry breath of the thing they had escaped. Nothing, just the wind and the trees, always the trees. Samuel stood slowly, his hands pressed to his ribs. His shirt was torn, the fabric sticky with something that wasn't quite blood. "We need to move," he said, his voice hoarse, "before it finds another way out." Lena didn't ask how the thing could escape. She had seen the way the forest bent, to its will, the way the roots moved like living things. The well was just one door, and doors could be broken. She forced herself to stand, her legs trembling. The sky was lighter now, the first pale streaks of dawn bleeding through the branches, but the sunlight didn't reach the forest floor. It never did in Black Hollow. Samuel started walking, his steps unsteady. Lena followed, her eyes scanning the shadows. The trees here were different, older, their bark blackened, their roots knotted into shapes that made her stomach twist. Faces, hands, screaming mouths. She knew what they were. Graves. The path twisted, leading them deeper into the heart of the forest. Samuel moved like a man who knew where he was going, but Lena could see the hesitation in his steps, the way his eyes flickered to the trees like he expected them to lunge. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice low. Samuel didn't look back. The witch wasn't the only one who knew how to keep it sleeping. Lena remembered the carvings on the oak, the symbols, the warnings. There are others. Were. A branch snapped somewhere to their left. Both of them froze. The forest held its breath. Then, a whisper. Samuel. Not a child's voice this time. A woman's. Soft, familiar. Samuel went rigid. Lena grabbed his arm. "Don't!" But he was already turning, his face pale, his eyes wide. "Mom." The word was a punch to Lena's gut. Their mother had been dead for 10 years. The forest knew. The figure stood between the trees, just out of reach of the light. Tall, slender, dark hair streaked with grey, just like Lena remembered. But the eyes were wrong. Black, like the Hollow Children's, like the thing in the well. "You've been gone so long," the figure murmured, stepping forward. "I missed you." Samuel took a step toward her. Lena yanked him back. "It's not her." The figure's head tilted. "Isn't it?" Then it smiled, too wide, too many teeth, and lunged. Lena didn't think. She stabbed. The knife sank into the figure's chest, black ooze bubbling from the wound. It shrieked, the sound tearing through the trees like a saw on bone, its form rippling, twisting. Then it burst, not into blood, into roots. Thick, writhing tendrils exploded from its chest, lashing through the air, wrapping around Samuel's arm before he could pull away. He screamed as they burrowed into his skin, his veins turning black beneath the surface. Lena grabbed his other hand and pulled. The roots held fast. Samuel's eyes met hers, wide with pain. "Lena!" She didn't hesitate. She raised the knife and hacked. The roots screamed as they severed, writhing like dying snakes as they retreated into the shadows. Samuel collapsed against her, his breath ragged, his arms streaked with black where the roots had touched him. The forest shuddered around them, and from deep, deep below. A roar, the ground split. Not a crack, a chasm yawning open at their feet, the earth itself peeling back like rotten skin. Below in the darkness, something moved, something awake. Samuel grabbed Lena's hand. "Run!" They ran. Not toward the village, not toward safety, because there was no safety, not anymore. The forest was alive, and it was hungry. Lena gasped, pushing herself up, her hands sinking into warm, spongy earth. "Samuel!" "Here," he rasped nearby. A faint, sickly glow pulsed to life, around them, revealing the truth of where they were. They weren't in a well anymore. They were inside something. The walls were ribbed, glistening with a thin layer of viscous fluid. The ground beneath them rose and fell slightly, as if breathing. And the air hummed with a sound like 1,000 whispering voices. Samuel's face was pale in the dim light. We're in its heart. The heartbeat was deafening here. Thump, thump, thump. Each pulse sent a tremor through the chamber, the walls contracting slightly. The glow came from veins running through the flesh, thin branching lines of dull gold, like cracks in old porcelain. Lena wiped her hands on her pants, her skin crawling. "What is this thing?" Samuel's voice was hollow. "The forest. The real forest." He pointed to the far wall, where the flesh parted slightly, revealing a glimpse beyond. Lena's breath caught. There were roots there, massive, tangled, stretching into an impossible darkness. And wrapped around them, bodies, dozens of them, hundreds, some skeletal, some still fresh, their faces frozen in silent screams. The roots coiled around them like serpents, burrowing into mouths, eye sockets, chests. The hollow children hadn't been lying. The forest fed. A sound echoed through the chamber, a wet, tearing noise. Lena spun just as a section of the wall split open, revealing a yawning tunnel. Something moved inside it, something big. Samuel grabbed her arm. "Run, now!" They didn't get far. The ground beneath them heaved, throwing them off balance. The walls convulsed, the veins flaring brighter as the heartbeat stuttered, then pounded, harder, faster, like a drum signaling war. And from the tunnel, a hand emerged. Not skeletal, not human. Too long, too many joints. The fingers curled around the edge of the opening, claws scraping against wet flesh. Then another hand, and another. Lena's blood turned to ice. The thing in the heart of the forest was waking up, and it had seen them. They ran, slipping in the muck, the walls closing in around them. The tunnel twisted, branched, but Samuel seemed to know where he was going, dragging Lena behind him. The thing behind them didn't run. It unfolded. Limb by limb, it pulled, itself free, its body too large, too wrong, moving in ways that made Lena's eyes ache. She caught glimpses of it in the pulsing light. A tangle of limbs, a mouth split vertically where a face should be, rows of teeth glistening. It didn't chase them. It flowed, like ink in water. It seeped through the tunnels, its presence making the air itself curdle. Samuel skidded to a halt in front of a wall of flesh, his hands pressing against it desperately. It's not opening." Lena turned. The thing was closer now, its mouth gaping, the whispers rising to a deafening shriek. She didn't think. She stabbed. Her knife sank into the wall, black fluid spraying as she dragged it downward in a vicious slash. The flesh screamed, and the wall split open. Light. Real light. Cold air rushed in as they tumbled out of the heart, landing in a heap on the forest floor. The sky above was grey, dawn just beginning to bleed into the horizon. Behind them, the well convulsed, its stone mouth snapping, shut like a bear trap, sealing the thing inside. For now. Samuel dragged himself to his knees, his hands shaking. It's not dead. Lena knew. She could still feel its heartbeat in her own chest. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. The hollow children were gone. But the trees were watching. The trees bled as they ran. Black sap oozed from split bark, pooling in the hollows between roots, thick as tar. The air reeked of rotting earth and something sharper, like lightning about to strike. Lena's lungs burned, her legs numb from running, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Samuel stumbled. Beside her, his infected arm clutched to his chest. The black veins had spread, creeping up past his elbow, the skin beneath them withered and grey. He hadn't spoken since the thing wearing their mother's face had touched him. But his eyes said enough. It's in me. The ground trembled again, a deep, rolling shudder that sent them both crashing to their knees. Behind them, the chasm growled, its edges crumbling as something vast and unseen dragged itself closer to the surface. Lena grabbed Samuel's good arm and hauled him up. "We need to get out of the forest." He shook his head, his voice a roar. "Scrape. Won't matter, it's awake now, it'll spread." She knew he was right, knew it the way she knew the taste of storm wind and the sound of her own heartbeat. Whatever slept beneath Black Hollow wasn't just a monster. It was hunger given shape, and it would swallow the world. The trees parted ahead, revealing a clearing they hadn't seen before. At its center stood a single skeletal birch, its white bark glowing faintly in the gloom. Unlike the others, it wasn't twisted or bleeding. It was clean, almost sacred. Samuel stiffened. That wasn't here before. Lena's skin prickled. Trap? Or gift? A whisper slithered through the branches above them. Not the hollow children, but something older. One life, it murmured. One light. To drown the dark. Samuel's breath hitched. He knew. They both did. The birch was a weapon, and it demanded payment. Lena stepped forward first. Samuel grabbed her wrist. No. She turned, meeting his gaze. His pupils were too wide, the black veins now threading up his neck. The thing beneath the forest was in him, changing him. It's already got you, she said softly. His grip tightened. Then let me do this. She shook her head. You're the only one who knows how to stop it. A lie, but a kind one. Samuel's face crumpled. He knew the truth too, that the forest had already claimed him, that whatever he was now, it wouldn't last. The birch tree's branches shivered, though there was no wind. A choice, a sacrifice. Lena didn't let him argue. She wrenched free and ran for the tree, her knife already in hand. The moment her fingers touched the bark, the world screamed. The ground split, the sky cracked, and the thing from the well surged into the clearing. A towering mass of roots and teeth and rage, its form shifting, unfolding, too vast to comprehend. Samuel shouted her name. Lena didn't look back. She plunged, the knife into the birch, and the tree burned. White fire erupted from the bark, racing up the trunk, the branches searing through the darkness like a star falling to earth. The thing from the well howled, its flesh blistering, its roots thrashing as the flames spread, to the oaks, to the pines, to the whole damned forest. Lena fell to her knees, the heat scalding her skin, her vision swimming. The last thing she saw was Samuel lunging for her, his infected arm outstretched, his mouth shaping words she couldn't hear over the roar of the fire. Then, light. And then, nothing. The fire did not burn, it unmade. Lena woke to silence, not the heavy, suffocating quiet of the forest, but true silence, the kind left in the wake of a storm. Her body ached, her skin streaked with soot and something darker, something that might have been her own blood. The clearing was gone, the trees were gone, only the birch remained, and Samuel. He crouched beside her, his infected arm curled against, his chest, his face gaunt in the pale light. The black veins had receded, but not vanished. The thing beneath the forest was still in him, just sleeping. For now. You died, he whispered. Lena touched her chest. No wound, no knife, just the memory of white fire and the taste of ash on her tongue. I came back. Samuel didn't smile. Not all the way. The land around them was scorched, the earth cracked, and barren. The fire had purged the forest, but not gently. It had scoured it down to the bones. Here and there, fragments remained. A half-buried root, twisted like a scream. A patch of blackened moss that shuddered when Lena stepped too close. And the well. It stood at the center of the devastation, its stones charred but unbroken. The mouth was sealed. The ivy that once choked it reduced to brittle threads. But it wasn't empty. Lena could feel the thing inside, curled deep beneath the earth, licking its wounds. Waiting. Samuel's fingers brushed the well's edge. It's not dead. No, Lena said, but it's afraid. 3, they buried the hollow children at dawn. What was left of them anyway? Pale, withered things, no larger than dolls, their black eyes finally closed. Samuel dug the graves with his bare hands, his infected arm trembling with the effort. Lena marked each one with a stone, though she couldn't say why. They hadn't been human, but they hadn't been monsters either. Not really, just lost. Like her, like Samuel, like the thing in the well. The village found them at midday, men with torches, and guns and faces tight with fear. They stopped at the edge of the burned land, their voices hushed as they took in the devastation. The absence. One of them, an old man with a hunter's eyes, stepped forward. What happened here? Samuel opened his mouth. Lena answered for him. A fire. The old man studied them, his gaze lingering on Samuel's arm, on Lena's too pale skin. He knew. Not the truth, but enough of it. Best not linger, he said at last. Places like this, they don't like to stay empty. They left at dusk. Not toward the village. Not toward home. There was no home now. Not for them. Samuel carried the weight of the thing beneath the forest in his blood. Lena carried the memory of the birch's fire in hers. And the well. The well carried a promise. One day, it would wake again, and when it did, they would be waiting.